If you are a startup looking to grow in Cambridge, the Bradfield Centre offers a range of flexible membership packages which put you in control of your office and home working mix. There's a vibrant, collaborative atmosphere, on-site cafe, plenty of green outside space, and regular member social events. For more information, visit bradfieldcentre.com or call 01223 919 600.
Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Faye. So, I've been with the Lords this week. How do you feel about that?
Is that the Lords as in the House of Lords, or the Cricket Lords, or other Lords?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just going to leave it like that. I've been no. I mean, I could really go off on a tangent. No,
The Lord of the Dance.
Yeah, said he. No, seriously, I was at a Chamber of Commerce event, and there were two lords there, and I was sandwiched between two lords.
Okay.
Which was nice. They were very lovely. But actually, it was a really good... I'm kind of just being silly, as always. But
You move in high circles these days, don't you?
I always move. I always have. I mean, it was the King last year. And, I mean, yeah just the way I like to rock and roll, basically. But it was a very good event anyway. It just happened to be that there were two lords there. So I thought I'd start the updates like that and see if you can beat me.
No, I can't. No, I can't.
Okay.
No, you're definitely outdoing me on the impressive level of your networking.
Yeah, I mean, I did lots of normal stuff too. I did, lots of day job stuff. I went to the CW barbecue. Summer barbecues are carrying on. They were very lucky. They had a day when it wasn't raining.
Oh.
So that was good. Caught up with Michaela, who's the new CEO, and I think she's got some really big plans. So it'll be interesting to see when they're uncovered. But yeah, no other real updates this week, just normal stuff.
Yeah, I mean, kind of similar for me. Obviously spent most of the week recovering from the letdown of the football. So our best wishes last Sunday seemed to do no good whatsoever, did they?
Well, yours, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. But yeah, I've had a nice varied week. I caught up with the lovely Caroline Hyde over at Cambridge Enterprise, which was nice. Bit of planning for Cambridge Tech Week. We've been doing lots of podcast stuff, haven't we, this week?
Yeah.
Some recording and planning, maybe some changes afoot. Who knows?
Why are you? What's happening? Are we leaving?
I just did that dangling there, so people...
Okay, fine.
Yeah, all that driving engagement.
Are you going to tell me?
Well, you were in all the meetings, so you should know.
Oh, damn, I should have paid attention. No, I did. Sorry, I did pay attention.
And outside of the Cambridge jobs, onboarding a new client for the developer relations agency that I'm involved in. So yeah, it's been nice and varied. Also caught up with Lily Chang. So I promised Lily I would give a shout out to the Rising Festival event, which is coming up in Cambridge on the 21st of September. If you've not come across that before, that's a festival for inspiration and growth where women from all walks of life come together to celebrate growth and inspiration. So it doesn't matter if you're an aspiring leader, a seasoned entrepreneur, an innovator, or simply just passionate about your personal development. This is your community. So you can check it out at therisingnetwork.com. So why don't we move on now to this week's tech news?
Indeed. So we've covered ARM and GraphCore closely over the past few months. Now that they are both in the SoftBank camp, Business Weekly believes negotiations are ongoing to determine the role ARM can play in a bit of a global revival for the recently rescued GraphCore. There has been speculation that ARM and GraphCore could join forces to steer a new generation of AI chips aimed at data centers.
We haven't spoken too much about Redgate, actually, so far on the podcast. We must rectify that. But news coming out of the local database and DevOps company, Redgate. They mark their 25th anniversary this year by reaching the milestone of 100 million annual recurring revenue. They were founded back in 1999, and they've now grown to more than 550 people. And as I said, they kind of focus on database and DevOps software solutions. And they've got more than 200,000 IT professionals around the world using their products. They also announced a new offering of 10 Past Summit Future Scholarship packages to the Past Data Community Summit in Seattle this November. And that covers the ticket price, travel and accommodation. And by doing that, Redgate are aiming to provide learning opportunities for students and early years career professionals who are passionate about database development and management and might not otherwise be able to attend. Any data professionals who work for a charity can now also apply for a complimentary 3-day tickets to this year's event. So if you're interested, Google Redgate and check that out.
That's great. Lots going on there. And, it just the 100 mark is just pinging out at me. But so I'm overexcited about us approaching our 100th episode. But 100 million ARR might just top it, I think.
We should definitely get Redgate on, actually. I'm surprised we haven't spoken to Redgate, actually. We need to get them on, don't we?
Yeah, well, we've said that about TTP and various others, and Cambridge Consultants. Yeah. There's a never-ending list of people to get on.
There is, yeah.
So, in other news, back to Darktrace, Cambridge cybersecurity AI company, they saw their share price nudge closer to the 52-week high after an encouraging hike in revenues for Q4 and the financial year 2024, which was to the end of June. CEO Poppy Gustafson said Darktrace was in good shape and expecting continued growth ahead of completing its $5.3 billion takeover by US giant Thoma Bravo. Darktrace's financial year 2024 revenue is expected to total at least $689.5 million for year-on-year growth of a really impressive 26.4%, maybe more. And Poppy said that the Thoma Bravo offer to acquire Darktrace continues to progress as expected, with our shareholders voting overwhelmingly in favour of the offer. The regulatory processes are proceeding with relevant waiting periods having expired and formal and informal clearances being received in line with the anticipated timelines. So exciting times continue for Darktrace.
That's right, yeah. And also in the news is Cambridge-based last-mile delivery company Zedify. They're set to expand into more UK cities, including the launch of a new Midlands hub in October after securing $4 million in new investment. That funding came from Barclays Sustainable Impact Capital, Mercia Ventures, the Midlands Engine Investment Fund, and Green Angel Ventures. Zedify was founded in 2018 and it works with major retail brands, parcel carriers, and independent businesses to provide more sustainable last-mile deliveries using cargo bikes, which have been shown to save over 80% of CO2 emissions per kilometre compared to electric vans. Currently delivering in Cambridge and 8 other UK cities, it plans to operate in up to 51 UK towns and cities within the next 5 years. And this funding round follows a $5 million investment from Barclays, Mercia and Green Angel back in March 2023. And since then, the company has almost doubled the size of its team from 113 people to 209 people and has signed up national brands including HelloFresh and Selfridges.
Yeah, and while you started reading that, I'm like, we were talking to someone about Zedify this week, and it's taken me that long to remember it was Sylvie at Cambridge Clean Tech.
That's right.
She called them out as well there. So that's, great news again. And a long list of companies to call out, which I'm not going to do all 52 entrants of them, but the shortlisted companies for the 2024 Business Weekly Awards have been announced. They're currently being vetted by Mills and Reeves, who every year forensically go through the shortlisted companies. So the 52 entrants are going to be competing for 16 awards. Many of them have appeared on the podcast. So Cambridge Mechatronics, CellXL, Hutton Bio, Orcascan, Sanogenetics, Second Mind, just to name a few. There's, of course, all the usual big hitters, the likes of DomainX, IQGeo, Luminance Technologies, Plex Tech, and a huge amount of life science and biotech companies. But it's also great to see some younger companies making that listing too. Obviously, I've mentioned a couple that we know, but also Echion Technologies, Mimicrete and Outseer on there. So good luck to everyone during the vetting process. I've been there and had clients go through there, and it's quite a grilling, but very positive, very constructive way of doing it. And award winners will be announced at the annual awards dinner in September. So that's it. I think that's all the news for this week. So on to the episode for today. I've been following the Halo programme, so I thought I'd reach out to Laura to invite her onto the programme with some of the last 2 cohorts as guests. So James, why don't you get us started?
So So we have a packed room for this episode, which is exciting. We do like a panel discussion. But Laura, why don't we start with you first? Why don't you introduce yourself and Anglia Capital Group?
Sure, thank you. Hi, my name's Laura Hood, and I am the Business Development Manager at Anglia Capital Group. And we are an angel investment network based across East Anglia. We started in 2015 and we've raised about 8 million for companies across the region. We've got about 55 members at the minute from a range of backgrounds. Most of them are exited entrepreneurs themselves. So we've got a lot of knowledge within the membership group, and we work very closely with our members, and we screen companies and present them to our members about 5 times a year.
And we've got quite a broad kind of international audience. So could you just break down, where geographically people are, if you've got any hotspots in particular areas? That would be helpful, I think.
Yeah, so we work a lot with Norwich Research Park, where there's a lot of amazing science happening, a lot of spin-outs from the 4 institutes over there. We work with the universities, so UEA and University of Suffolk very closely. And the other innovation centres like Hethel Innovation just outside Norwich, again, another real hub for innovation, especially on the engineering side of things.
So talking about these startups and spin-outs, it's quite a great list. And I know quite a few of them, companies like Ablatus, Canopy, CellXL, Developing Experts, Glyconics, Iceni Glycoscience, PBD Biotech, and the list goes on. You're not at all bothered what sector, what industry they're from?
No. As a group, we're sector agnostic. Some of the individual members have specific sectors that they prefer to invest in, although when we have tried to narrow them down, it's quite difficult because they'll sometimes say that they're particularly interested in agri-tech, but then they'll see a pitch, which is something completely different, but they love it and they'll invest in it. We've always been sector agnostic. So we see pitches from food tech, agri-tech, biotech, tech, crop tech, all sorts of different things, medical, lots of science-based stuff out the research park. So yeah, it's a real mix.
And how different are you, or are you not different from Cambridge Angels?
Well, we work in a really similar way. We don't tend to deal with the really deep tech stuff that comes out of Cambridge. So that is really well served by Cambridge Angels. So we're not really needed in that area. So if we get companies like that, we'd more likely pass them to them. And then if they get companies that aren't deep tech enough for their investors, they'd pass them our way. So we're quite collaborative as an industry. So we don't really compete with other angel groups. We tend to pass deals around. Basically, everyone's trying to help people to get funded. So we work together.
You mentioned, I think it was 8 million in total investments. What's the typical check size that you write?
Well, it does vary by member a lot, anything from 10,000 to 250,000. So it just depends on the individual's appetite to invest and what they're interested in, really. So we as Anglia Capital Group aren't investing. It's our members who are investing their own personal wealth into the company. So that decision lies with them. So it's quite a big variance.
So, Laura, we invited you on because I'd been watching the Halo programme. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that programme is, how many times you've run the programme, and just give us a bit of an overview of it?
Yeah, sure. So we've run the Halo programme twice now. It came about because traditionally, as you know, ACG work with East Anglian-based companies. But during COVID, when everything then went online, we opened the doors a little bit and we had companies from all over the country. And what we found was when they hit the external screening session of our screening process, often the Norfolk and Suffolk particularly based companies weren't getting through, which was really frustrating for us. So that was a bit of a learning curve. We closed the doors again and said, right, we're going to focus on the local area and how can we help those companies to be more pitch ready. And Anglia Capital Group's a really small team of 2 on a day-to-day basis, so we don't have time to follow up with every single person who applies to pitch and give feedback to everyone. That's kind of where the Halo programme was born. We decided to call on that expertise, and our members have been great. Each of the companies on the Halo programme get 2 mentors. They're from our membership group and from some of our founders, some of our successful founders. So they've been really helpful in helping us to build the programme, and our partners who deliver some of the content. So in terms of how the programme works, it runs over sort of 8 to 10 weeks, and the companies come along to in-person sessions on pretty much all the topics that you need to go through to get investment ready. So the legals, financials, marketing, valuations, which is a tricky topic, and then onto the pitch and getting pitch ready and pitch practice. And then we finish with a a really nice showcase event at the end, which is a celebration really for the companies for their hard work, and they get to pitch in front of a panel of judges, and then they get feedback from the judges, and we declare a winner on the night. So it's a really nice finish to the programme.
And how is selection to the programme handled? Do you have to apply? Is it open to anyone? Is it free, chargeable?
It's open to anyone. It is chargeable. It depends on what sponsorship we get in to run the programme. So we rely on our sponsors to help us with that. So we want to bring the costs down as much as we can for companies, because they're all very early stage. So, they don't have a lot of spare cash, which is why they want to raise funds. Some of the companies definitely want to raise angel investment. Some aren't sure. And that is part of the learning curve that they go through on the Halo programme as well.
And I think that's great, having the mentors in place, isn't it? So people like Berwyn Clark, who I know really well, they're going to be very honest in their feedback and really help them make those decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Because they've been there and they've been through all those problems, and they've seen a lot of different companies as well. So in several instances from our previous cohort, we've got mentors who are still working with their companies just because they enjoy it and they want to help. I mean, I'll let the guys answer this, but I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the programme is the mentors.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks for that introduction. And I alluded to having a packed room at the beginning, and we're actually joined by two companies that have been through the Halo programme. So, Mark, why don't we start with you? Why don't you introduce yourself and your company?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Mark Merriwest, and my company is called Yond. And we're a startup that's in travel tech, and we're bringing social commerce to the travel industry. And basically, the problem that we're solving is that 84% of travellers are influenced by social media for their planning. But there's this big gap between this inspiration and looking for their travel plans and actually being able to book anything. So our unique proposition is basically bringing together different aspects of tools that people are already using and putting into one app. And across the piece, for example, Lonely Planet guides, if some of you are old enough to remember Lonely Planet guides, which apparently young people don't know about anymore, and Pinterest and ways of saving stuff, and then into things like Booking.com and Expedia. So our app brings all of that together into one experience to simplify that journey between looking and booking.
Great. And I believe you took part in the first programme, is that right, in September, November 23?
Yeah, that's right. So I've known Laura and Hannah for a bit longer than that through circles and networking in Norfolk. But yeah, we took part in the programme across that time and finished with our event in October 23.
So what was the kind of trigger to apply then? What was the gap that you were looking to fill?
One of the things that we've been working on for a while is we have this seed of an idea, but the problem really is that you never really know until you speak to other people whether that idea actually makes sense to anybody else. Is it an investable idea? How do we take what we've got right now and make it into something that's investable? And one of the challenges in Norfolk and Suffolk in particular is that our ideas can often seem to be slightly smaller than in other places, particularly with things around Cambridge. And I think it's a really good opportunity with Halo to actually work out how you take what you have and put it into the mainstream of investment. And that was the kind of opportunity that we saw, and actually we found by the end of the programme that we'd worked out where we'd come from to where we needed to go, and became investable on the back of it.
What are your plans to go live?
We actually received pre-seed investment in April of this year. So we've now taken what was our MVP. We're remodeling it and getting some expert external help in certain areas, particularly around the UX of the product. We're fully in a build phase at the moment, ready to go live at some point in a soft launch in August and then out to the world in September, hopefully.
That's great. Okay, and we'll come on to some more questions with everyone in a moment. But before we do that, let's introduce our third guest, which is Alex. And so, Alex, do you want to introduce yourself? And you're coming at this from a much more experienced point of view as well. So I'll be interested to find out a little bit more about your company.
Yeah, I'm Alex Howard. I'm the managing director of our software. We provide clinical research software, online software, through our product Mantle. We're a bit different. We're not a startup. We're kind of 8 years old. But because of COVID, the company changed. We went from kind of professional services to now a more of a product. By creating a product, it made me realize actually we can scale this. And that got me thinking about, investment and that kind of next phase, which sort of led on to the Halo program and investigating how that works. Because it's all new to me.
And you have live customers now. So are they from the original services that you offered that then took on the platform?
Yeah, a bit of both. So we started developing bespoke management software. We had certain clients that knew they'd had too many participants to manage manually, so they needed to systemize it. And I come from a background of systemizing processes and bringing your manual processes into databases, and usually desktop, but now it's all online, so all web development. And it started kind of one client at a time, making bespoke software. And I always wanted to make Mantle as a product, but the builder's house analogy, we were too busy building everyone else's to build our own. And when COVID happened, it was actually our clients' colleagues which were panicking that they could no longer see patients face to face. And we quickly made a Mantle MVP so that they could carry on doing questionnaires and doing some cognitive tests. And over the last 4 years, it's grown into this software that does kind of everything for everybody. So some existing clients went onto Mantle, but mostly new clients have started on Mantle and kind of grown with it.
You've talked about, you've been working in this area for quite a while, but that's not your background. So as regular listeners will know, I stalk everyone and I look at, what your past is and all that kind of stuff. And you're an ARU alumnus in audio and music technology. So another person who ticks, there's so many people we talk to who tick a music box, and I get all, as you can tell, I get all overexcited and animated about it. So did you never want to stay in that area? What led you over to clinical research?
No. So there's two routes you can take with audio music technology. You can take the arts route and go and do live recording, or you can take the science route, which is more about synthesizers and sequencers and recording software. And I took the science route. So I was always computer-based and program-based. I remember the old BBC computers and programming text adventures, maybe showing my age. Always had an interest in programming and computing, always loved music as a performer and as a technician. Went down the music tech route. When I left university, I worked for the Royal Bank of Scotland as an analyst, and that was my first step into automating systems and processes. But at the same time, I ran a production company, and we used to do live sound for music festivals and things like this, had all the big PAs. So I still loved doing it. But over time, it's every weekend, it's every holiday. Kind of fell out of love a bit with the live side. Still love the recording side. That's started the journey into programming, I guess, and systemizing and databases, and that computer side just carried on. I worked for probably one of the largest environmental consultants in the UK, doing the same thing, taking manual processes. And when I left there and took that leap into kind of self-employment, it was just purely by chance. One of my friends, who was a chimney sweep, he was sweeping a client's chimney. They start saying, their programmer's been poached by a casino. Do we know any programmers? And so they recommended me, and they ended up being a cognitive testing company. And then that started that journey into, science, and that opened the doors to UCL. They wanted some extra software, and it just snowballed from there, just carried on through word of mouth.
So let's get on to the meat of the conversation now, which is a little bit of a discussion with you, sharing what did you learn from going on those programs? You've said, the ultimate is to help you get your pitch together, but just talk us through some of the things that you've learned.
So I think one of the biggest challenges that we certainly have, that I think there's a lot of startups have, is valuation. It's really impossible to know how to value your business, particularly as a startup, particularly as a point where you think you've got the most amazing idea ever, and other people say, that's fine, but we don't think it's that much money. One of the things that we found interesting as part of the sitting at the back and watching the process happen was how to get the feedback on that, to actually try to gauge the market on your valuation. So we saw pitches where people were going in and saying, we want 20% for 2 million. And people just saying, no, it's not worth that. But instead of then saying, we think it's actually worth this, and being helpful about it, there wasn't any sort of guidance. And one of the really sort of good things about the Halo program was that they have an expert working directly with them, where you have a session to kind of go through and work through the models, but then actually having an offline session afterwards to actually say, well, is this realistic, and coaching you into kind of working out where your market is. It turns out in reality, they were spot on.
Yeah, no, I think Mark's right. Valuation is really hard, if not one of the hardest bits to have some conviction with. You can sit there, especially if you're not trading, to say, my company's worth this much, and it's real kind of finger in the air stuff. But there are calculations you can do, and even market. Actually, I find market and accessible market another one of those. What does that mean? That was really useful to learn that through the Halo program. And I think for me, coming from a different side, I'm not a startup. So it was then looking at the company again and thinking, well, what are we doing? What is our market? And doing that process again really helped me to focus the business and think about, well, what direction are we going in?
And Mark, a question. Having been through the Halo program, do you think you're now at a stage where you're on your way and you have that kind of growth plan figured out? Or would you consider going into like an accelerator program or other kind of supporting program that might be available in the region?
I mean, that's actually a really interesting question. From at the end of the presentation phase, one of our other biggest learning points was that we'd worked out how to say our message to people that wanted to listen. How do we get it down to a certain point where we say, this is what we are and this is what we do? Prior to that, we were explaining what we did quite literally, and it actually wasn't working and people weren't understanding it, whereas we actually changed it to be, and this is what it means, and then we kind of got to that point. And at the end of the process, we managed to get to that point that everybody understood in the room. That was our main kind of key goal. Everything else opened up after that point because we could articulate it properly. Everybody else started to work on it, and it started to work for us. From that point, we actually had a plan ready to execute. We know all the things around it. But the key thing, I think, with the accelerator programs, and I haven't found any others in that sense, but we did start to look, but we found that a lot of accelerator programs are aimed at getting people to that first pre-seed investment point. And actually what there really, really needs to be, in my opinion, is, okay, you've got your funding, now what? Where's that first 100 days? Where's the first year that takes you from that kind of almost zero starting point again, now with money, to get it to the point where our next phase is our seed round? So how do we get from here to there? Luckily, in a way, so we're supported by Innovate UK as well, and we have investment from SCIS VC firm who are also providing some support in that regard. It would be amazing to have accelerators at our stage where we could sit in a room occasionally with people and shoot the breeze with other founders that are at our stage and do the same thing again. So we are on our way and we're doing fine, but I think accelerators are a great idea, but at the right kind of phase as we go through.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I know that a lot of the founders would say the same thing. So I'm talking specifically from my experience in Cambridge. They do the programs, they make the connections, but then they've gone off in a little silo. And actually, there's a group of them now that are all talking, wondering when we're going to go to the next one to ask them to come on the podcast, because they all talk to each other and they're giving each other that guidance. So does that community exist from the alumni or the different cohorts, in Halo?
I mean, not at the moment, unfortunately, because there's only been the 2 cohorts that have gone through. I think that's part of the plan as it moves into the future. And certainly the people that were in the group that I spent time with, we do still talk to each other, but then they're at different phases and they have different types of businesses and everything as well. I think we're trying to build that locally in East Anglia, but in Norwich and in Norfolk in particular. It will take work and time to kind of move that forwards. But no, unfortunately, there is an opportunity for development there, I think, in that sense, to kind of build that as we go forwards.
Is that a gap, Laura, that you're looking to maybe kind of help to close? I also think maybe do some of the Technation programs run at kind of that slightly later stage as well? I'm not entirely sure. I think they do.
We hear that a lot, that it's like, you've got your funding, now what? And I think if you haven't got a mentor or maybe an investor director helping you, that can be really, really tricky. We often talk within Anglia Capital Group about how can we better support portfolio companies, what can we do? And we would really love to do some more work on that. It's just a time constraint issue for us, really. But yes, I think some kind of follow-up halo would be great if we could pull in the partners and put something together. That would be ideal.
You've developed the program because you've spotted that there's these gaps in different companies and what they need and the advice that they need. Have there been any curveballs? So as you go through the program, usually there's something that comes up and you go, oh, crikey, we haven't actually covered that. Has anything like that arisen yet? I know it's only you're 2 in, but...
Sort of. We didn't have a specific IP section within the Halo program. And I think for some companies, that's a gap, and that's something that we could and possibly should add in, depending on the companies. We had a couple of companies who were spinning out of institutes on NRP last time, and they were having some issues around IP and ownership. And I think that could be something that could be added in maybe as an extra session, because it's not relevant for all the companies. So one of the things that we offer as part of the Halo programme is that the cohort can come along and watch one of our pitch events. So they actually sort of sit at the back, they watch the pitches, but crucially they get to sit in on the member discussion section. And I'm not sure if you agree with this, Alex, but I think our last event, there was some really in-depth discussion and questions going on with some of the pitches. And I think I was sitting there thinking, oh, I hope this hasn't put everyone off. I hope they're not now going to be scared to come and do the finale. But it's good. It's a good experience, and you have to be prepared for what questions might come up in your Q&A after your pitch.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So I was talking to someone last week who'd gone through one of these programs, and they were actually disappointed because everyone was too nice to them. And they wanted the grilling. So, right, responses, would you rather have the grilling, or would you, do you want it to be, it's my first kind of pitch out and be nice to me?
Well, so constructive feedback really is important. I mean, the Halo program, that was what's so good about it. I mean, imagine looking back, going to pitch without any preparation from the Halo program. Like, it would have just been a disaster. I mean, you actually done this initial recording of our pitches, and then the pitches at the end are very different to how we started, and trying, like Mark was saying, about getting that message across concisely. But it still wasn't perfect, and the feedback was still there, and it was all great feedback. It wasn't just picking on things just for the sake of it. It was all really constructive feedback. So no, not a grilling.
What I noticed as we got towards the end of our program and got the message better, and even when we got to our kind of final investment pitch, where the investment came from, was it became more of a constructive discussion than a grilling. Or we have had the nice one as well. The nice one for me was the worst one, because it meant people didn't get it. They basically were sat there, I don't really know what to ask because I don't understand. Or I want to be so impolite to you that I'm just going to keep quiet. The ones with the grilling were fine because they were challenged to help us move forwards. Okay, yeah, we can see the challenge here, but they were almost answering the question themselves. I can see the challenge here, but you would go and do that, wouldn't you? Which then became, really sort of part of it. And that happened a few times towards the end, which we were quite lucky with.
So you're both building your businesses in Norwich. So let's take this opportunity to talk about Norwich for a second. What's the startup scene like in the city? Numbers of companies, kind of connectivity, events. What does the community look like for you guys, and recruitment, all of the kind of challenges of building a company in the city?
Do you know what? I think I missed out on all that, actually. I know there is a lot that goes on, and if you look for it, there's lots of networks, and there is a really good startup community. But I wasn't in that space. I think I'm more traditional kind of startup. I was out knocking on doors and trying to sell my services. I'd done that from the beginning. I know there is a lot going on in Norwich, but I say I've come to it a bit later. Maybe, Mark, you can talk about the beginning, and then I can pick up from the middle somewhere.
Yeah, so I've been in Norwich for 20 years, since coming back from being a student years ago. Things have developed and grown over time, and there's always been that wants to be entrepreneurial in Norwich. And it's a great place to live. It's a great place to be. It's known for its creativity. The startup scene is small, but I think is positive and encouraging to each other. We have got the basis of an accelerator in the city centre. There are startups that want to support each other. The particular thing of note is called Sync the City, which is a 48-hour or 72-hour kind of startup program in conjunction with the two universities in Norwich. And it's a nice place to be. But I think the thing for me is to occasionally break out of Norwich and just go and see what else is happening and almost bring that back in. And I think that's that connection between Norwich and the other places that's important. But it's definitely a great place to be. In terms of recruitment, as I say, the two universities, people still come back from Cambridge to come and live in Norfolk again and come and work back with us. But of course, post-COVID, the thing about living anywhere and working anywhere has made a real difference. And so whereas before we would look to have an office and recruit locally, it's now fully remote. But we're still very much rooted in Norwich, and always will be. We're a Norwich unicorn in the making, and that's the plan. So yeah, it's a great place.
And we have an episode coming up for, I think it's in November, when it's the Innovation Hothouse. So it's Norwich Research Park, UEA, and we're going over there. And the intention is we spend all day doing as many interviews as possible, because it's really growing, and there seems to be a lot more impetus behind it as well, which is great. But I have a question for you, and I'm not quite sure if this is true, so I'm going to throw it out there and then correct me, please. Do you both have Cambridge addresses?
Yes, so I've recently become a virtual tenant at the Bradfield Centre. I've virtual tenant at the Norwich Research Park for about 7 years now. And, the community there on the NRP is great as well. Everyone's there to help. That's what introduced me to Anglia Capital Group, and the Halo program was asking those questions and getting introduced to everybody. Great introductions to the UEA. Obviously got the University Hospital there as well. So as a life science business, that's been easily the biggest customer through the UEA and the hospital. But wanting to do more, Norwich is a bit more plant science based, and Cambridge is obviously more life science. So to expand my business further, I've moved my focus over to Cambridge. But as you say, that Norwich becoming more well known, better funding, the BBSRC, of all the research parks, Norwich is getting kind of nearer the top of the list. So I think the focus is changing, and I would like to see that kind of Oxford, Cambridge, Norwich kind of join up.
We don't any longer. In a previous company, we had a Cambridge address and really enjoyed being part of what was described to me as the village of Cambridge, and being part of that at the time. I think it's become less important to have the physical address and where everybody located nowadays. I think the time for that has gone in certain cases. One of the things for us is because we're travel tech, a more traditional tech, I think, as Laura described us earlier on, the tech, that actually we would probably, if we were looking for somewhere outside of us, it would probably be London, it would probably be Shoreditch or somewhere along those lines. But we don't feel actually we need to do that as an address any longer. And I think it's important as well that when we do grow the tech scene in East Anglia and look at Cambridge and Norwich and Ipswich and all the areas around it, that we recognise that it isn't just life sciences and plant sciences. They're brilliant and everybody's amazing at all of those aspects, and that's where we really grow. But there are those of us running tech businesses in those areas that are just normal tech businesses. It just happens to be where we live. So it's, we don't, but it's, we love Cambridge. We come here all the time. It's a lovely place, but we are Norwich based.
Yeah, Mark, you did allude to it earlier on that you like to go to different places anyway, just to see. So that's a perfect example. Earlier on, we talked about the mentors on the programme as well. Were there any particular highlights that you wanted to cover off of people that, or feedback that they gave?
The mentors were just great. We matchmake them. So we look at the mentors on our list and what their background is, their speciality, and what companies we've got. And we put them together, and it worked really, really well. And quite a few of the mentors are still working with their companies now. You mentioned Berwin, he was one of our mentors. One of our main mentors is Richard Barber, who you two will both have spoken to a lot. He's assigned one of the companies to mentor, but he pretty much mentors everybody throughout the whole programme. He comes to all the events and he has something useful to say every single time to every single company. So he's been a really big part of the Halo programme.
Excellent. So I'm interested now, very selfishly, I run 21 to Watch and it's across the east of England. Who's coming through that we should be paying attention to? And this can be on the Halo programme. They're both pointing at each other in the room here. You can't see, people can't see that,
When I read about 21 to Watch, I was like, okay, who springs to mind? And the first company that sprung to mind is another tech company, actually, another Norwich-based tech company, prop tech company called Home Move. I don't know if they're already on your radar, but they need to be. So they raised funds through Anglia Capital Group in 2023, I think it was. And they are digitising the home moving process. So everything from finding a mortgage, finding a house, finding a removal company, and just that whole nightmare experience that we all have when we're trying to move house. They're amazing. And last week, they won the UK BAA Scale Up Team of the Year. So that's the UK Business Angels Association. So definitely get them on your radar. And then there's another Norwich tech company called Beep, who are a UEA spin out, and they do digital campus cards. He was a UEA student and thought, why doesn't this already exist? It's one of those like no-brainer ones when you think, how did that not already exist? So instead of having a physical card around the campus, you have it on your phone. And they're working with a lot of different universities in the UK, and they're looking at abroad, and also sort of centres like this where you need a card to get into places.
The programme sounds fantastic, and it's great that you've got, two strong advocates in Alex and Mark here, to validate that. How do people get involved? Is it a time-based application process? How does anyone listening that's interested contact you?
So on our website, there is a page where you can register your interest, or you can just email me or stalk me on LinkedIn. I don't have dates yet for when the next programme is. We're just working on how we can deliver that and which sponsors we can work with. But as soon as we do have dates for that, they'll go on the website, and I'll be shouting about it everywhere. So people apply, but we look through the list and we think, who can we help out of these people? Like, we just look and pick the ones who we have a conversation with each of them, and we pick the ones who we think we could really help. So that's how it works, really. It's not a formal application process as such. It's register your interest, let's have a conversation, and hopefully we can help you.
Thanks for that. So as we just wrap up, I think it's a perfect opportunity to ask Mark and Alex just to talk through what's next on the horizon for them. So Mark, do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, we're in an exciting time at the moment of getting our go-to-market strategy together, or the actual implementation of our go-to-market, finishing the software and the branding and everything, and getting ourselves ready to launch out to the world in the autumn when everyone's back from the holidays. So yeah, it's an exciting and challenging time, but we're really looking forward to it, and hopefully being able to show people what we've been working on.
Yeah, thank you. So the next phase is all about scale up. So off the pitch we done through the Halo program, there were loads of great questions. You know, some were challenging, some were just interest. Oh, can it do this? And have you thought about this? And that was really encouraging that people clearly got what we were trying to communicate and took an interest in thinking the next steps of it themselves. We didn't get investment, but I think that showed that we were nearly there, I think, the next time round. So we're going to carry on trying to get investment. We've got some plans already for scale and growth, so I'm going to just try and put them in action anyway. Let's see what happens next time round.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, and obviously all the best with those future plans. Final word to you then, Laura. What else is coming up? I saw on your LinkedIn feed there was an event about becoming an angel. I think it's specifically targeted at females. Is that correct?
That's right. So we're running a bit of a focus on females at the moment, and for the remainder of the year. I'm just going to throw a few stats out for you to explain why. So across the UK, only 14% of angel investors are female. And I think it's around 2% of equity funding goes to female-founded companies. Plus, we know that a female investor, angel investor, their portfolio is normally 25 to 50% of female-founded companies. So we want to get more female founders funded, and we need to get more female angels. In order to do that, we are trying to just move the dial a little bit. We have an event in September, which is for women who are interested in finding out more about becoming an angel investor, what it entails, any questions asked. We've got a fireside chat with our MD, Hannah Smith, and some of our existing female angel investors. And then people who come along to that event can then join the ACG pitching event in the afternoon. So they can sit and see what it's like at a pitching event, watch some pitches. And at that event, we're also focusing on female founders. So that's kind of the first piece of it. And then we're hoping to do some work with the UEA Business School for the spin-outs that are coming out of there, but female-founded spin-outs. So we're hoping to do something with them a bit later in the year. Just if we can just edge that percentage up a little bit, we'll be pleased.
That's perfect. Well, thank you, Alex, Mark, Laura, for joining us today. It's been really interesting, and appreciate your time.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It will really help others discover the show.